Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Today, on the 25th of May, 2020, I'm starting a look at the second story in the Black Guardian trilogy, Terminus. Now, before I begin, I just wanted to say, that because in 2019, YouTube was was found to be data mining the information of underage users, and therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. They put in policy to scapegoat creators, and to meaning that I have to say that this video is not meant for children. It's not marketed for kids. It's not aimed at kids. Doctor Who is a family show that kids can watch, but this video, as with all the videos on my channel, look at the show from a from an adult perspective, so viewer discretion is advised. But we're starting with part 1 of Terminus, which is a bleak start, a very, very, very bleak start. This is an episode that basically just takes a lot. It's not like a story where you get to see things work out for the best. You get to see things, start out with some interesting ideas, because there really aren't any interesting ideas. The first 10 minutes are set on the TARDIS, and the story just plain opens with Turlough messing with said TARDIS. He's working for the Black Guardian. The Guardian will have his way, and basically kill the Doctor, because that's what this story is all about. The Black Guardian wants to kill the Doctor, so he messes with the TARDIS, and the TARDIS basically malfunctions. That takes, and it ends up, there's this thing that means that it for some reason merges with this ship, so like the hallways of the TARDIS lead out into the ship, which is an interesting kind of idea. It's a cool concept, but like it could just do an emergency materialization. It's just one thing, and for some reason Nyssa leaves the TARDIS. She's running an experiment and she just decides to leave the TARDIS, like, because it's in her room, her and Tegan's room, which, this is the famous story where Tegan and Nyssa are sharing rooms, which is weird, very weird, like, just for the time. Obviously people ship them now, but like, just for the time, that's just a weird thing, for what they, are doing with the story that you have. You have this like, oh, they're sharing, like, again, it's weird, but like, Nyssa goes off the TARDIS, and eventually the Doctor follows her, then Tegan and Turlough, and then the TARDIS just gets closed, and then it's literally, let's wander around corridors until 2 people show up on the ship, and are like, they point guns at the Doctor, and then, surprise, it's a plague ship. That's called Terminus. That is literally the events of this episode. That is that is how this episode, this plot ends, and that's our cliffhanger. Like, this is just, which is just weird. Like, that's just a really weird way of doing an episode where you're like, surprise plague ship. You know, it's a it's something where you don't get to see you don't get to see everything to be a complete sort of story. It's just like, oh, here's something different, and here's kind of what we're doing. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm gonna be honest, Turlo is annoying. The cliffhanger is very much a bunch of overacting. You get to see something crazy. Like, Turlo's just whiny. Like, he doesn't have much development, or really in terms of development, or even in terms of, what the story can do. It's something very, very weird. It's the very different sort of added bit of plot that doesn't really do much. Like, it's all just, this isn't a good episode. It's really not. There's very little to watch here. Like, you could probably start with part 2 and basically have all you need to know, which is saying a lot about, that says a lot about why this episode doesn't work. Because if you can start with the second episode, why don't you just start with the second episode? I mean, the set design is nice. That's really all. That is really all I can say. So overall, I'm gonna have to give Terminus Part 1 a 2 out of 10. Alright, it is the 26th of May 2020, and I just finished listening to Part 2 of Terminus. Oh, I really don't like this one. Okay. Shit, let's... let's talk about this. Okay, so Steve Gallagher draws heavily from Norse mythology for much of this story. You have this character called Ulvir, Kari being one. There's a character credited as Inga. There's this guy, part of the Vanir. There are a bunch of things that, where, there is just this, there's this thing called the Garm. There are just a bunch of things that Gallagher has obviously drawn on mythology for a way to, for a way to do a starting point, which should be interesting. Like, really, it should be an interesting story. Um, like there should be something new there, something different, some sort of real exploration in the story. However, that's just not present. It really isn't. It's all very much one of those things where you get to see the story there, but not really do anything of interest or of note. With just about everything, it really is one of those odd little thing where you really this is this really a different thing. There aren't many ideas. Like, this second episode is one where not anything happens. Like, Nissa wanders off. Tegan and Turlo are down in ventilation. And, like, we build up basically to the Doctor being choked out. Like, that's the episode's ending. It's and then you get to see that you get to see a lot. This is an episode where it could be described as nothing happens for 25 minutes. Really, nothing happens. I don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of stuff in the info text that show that things that were, things that were planned for the story, but that were cut out or reshot or redone, like they're just a bunch, but or dialogue that was rewritten, and things that are done so the story, I guess, could go out on time, or could make more sense, but it's not that the story doesn't make sense. Like, the whole idea is Terminus is a ship for people sufferers of Lazarus disease, and Nissa gets Lazarus disease because she's infected, though. But the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlo aren't, even though they all also came into contact with the Lazarus. Like, it's not like, oh, there's this completely different story going on here with the characters. No, it's still there, and it's still interesting, at least as interesting as it could be, but it doesn't do anything. Like, it's worse than the first episode was boring, but there was potential to maybe make this at least an okay story. This episode just sort of takes a dive off the deep end into somewhere that you just can't enjoy. You don't enjoy it. It's something you don't enjoy watching. You just get your way through it and hope it ends quickly. That's really all you do. So overall, I'm going to have to give part 2 of Terminus a 1 out of 10. Alright, it is the 27th of May 2020, and I just finished watching part 3 of Terminus. Oh boy, this is... This story is just... Yeah. It's not good. It really isn't. And it's actually kind of a shame, as people often say that after season 14, Doctor Who starts going all downhill. Well, I don't agree with that. There are definitely amazing stories after season 14, and we've covered some of them. We still have quite a few of them to cover, because every Doctor has some amazing televised, at least one really amazing televised story. This is one of those stories where you just... Yeah, you really don't... You can't find yourself enjoying it. It's not... It doesn't do anything new with the material. It doesn't really do anything with the material. Like, this is the 3rd episode. I barely feel like anything has happened. The biggest part of the plot here that's really, that's the closest to good and something different and something new and doing something fun and something weird is having this bit you know, it's it's this very, very, very weird thing where you don't get to see you know, you don't get to see everything work. Like, the big ideas are, oh, Terminus caused the Big Bang, caused Event 1. Cool idea. Are they actually doing anything with that idea? You know, it's one of those things where you don't get to see you don't get to see what the characters are doing, where everything can go, what things you know can be done with this little weird story. You know, it's just, how do I describe it? It's this idea. There is a there is a story there's a story that you just have to have everything you know, you have to see everything to the end, and it really is interesting. You see the Garm, which is this dog alien robot thing that just looks silly and weird and doesn't make any sense. It's just sort of there. Um, it's everything uh, where there is um, there's everything something different. Um, there's something different, but not interesting. Like there really isn't anything, and we're just building up to like, oh, the ship's gonna blow up again, which it should be a cliffhanger, but there isn't. It should be a cliffhanger to really, like, really be one of those things where you have everything everything there. You have the story, you have the plot, you have what can be done, and you don't get to see it. It's just sort of one of those things where you don't get to have something amazing, something fun. It's just kind of there. Like it's not the absolute amazing thing that you'd think it would be, but there just isn't what the story needs to be to tell itself and to be like, okay, here's something new, here's something different, here's something you might like. It's very it's very much a different thing that the story might do, but it doesn't do anything fun or interesting with it. It just sort of creates the idea and is like, okay, here's our idea, this is what we're running with, nothing's happened. So overall, I have to give it a 1 out of 10. Alright, it's the 28th of May 2020, and I just finished watching part 4 of Terminus, the final episode, where... Okay, this story is hard to talk about because it's not it's not good. It's bad. This entire final episode just wraps things up and is like, we're done. That's it. We've finished the story. That's all we're doing. And I don't think that's... I don't think the way that Steve Gallagher finishes this story is productive. I don't think it's not good. It leaves Nissa behind, basically, because it's like, I'm gonna work on a cure. Surprise! We've had the cure the entire time. It's too neat and tidy. And it almost hits even harder with the current state of affairs. Like, we are in a... If you're watching this in the future, and I don't know why you would be, but currently we're living through an international pandemic. That's what we're living through. A pandemic doesn't just, oh, surprise, the cure was there all along. It's not that it's not realistic. It's that it's like, because a lot of Doctor Who was not realistic. Like, time travel is pretty impossible. It's that it breaks its own rules. Like, like it breaks the rules of how um um you know, it's it's that, oh, everything's here. It just feels like a cheap thing. Like, the Garm has actually, like, not isn't actually a a villainous force. So, that's a thing. Even though, like, it it isn't. Um, you know, it's it's this it's this entire thing where you don't you don't get to see things as as the um, something just different. Um, is it's it's a different, it's not a smart way of telling the story. It's wrapping things up with no sense of occasions. Um, it's it's just it's just something where you get to see um, you had everything. um, you know there's nothing that we really get to we don't get to see how everything, um you know we don't get to see how we don't really get to see, like, the characters change or things happen. It just sort of goes on like it can. um you know you don't get to see everything, and it ends sadly. Like, Sarah Sutton is written out without any real pomp and circumstance. Tegan and Turlough have literally done nothing in this story, and we end on a quote unquote cliffhanger with the Black Guardian just screaming. This isn't a good episode to end on. It isn't. It's bad. Like, it really makes Terminus one of the weakest stories just of the entire classic run. Like, because it starts out bad. It doesn't start out. It starts out bad with the hint of a good idea, like the mildest hint of a good idea, and a shocking cliffhanger, and then it just sort of nosedives from there. So overall, I have to give part four. I think I have to give part four of Terminus a 1 out of 10 because it's just not good. That being said, it's the end of the episode, so we add up the scores and average them out to give Terminus a final score of 1.25 out of 10. That's low. I think that might be the lowest we've gone. Other than that, thank you, everyone, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and join me next time when I promise we are talking about a better story with Doctor Who Enlightenment.